Hello, good evening. I'm Dr. Angelica Delgado Rendon, and right now I am going to walk through project 2 with a student from one of the biostatistics classes. So he kindly agreed to be able to record our meeting today so that we can share with other students in case they have questions. Okay. So first, let me look at HSC 350 project. Project 2 instruction. Okay, so for project 2, what you are being asked to do, here are the project instructions, is you're asked to do two things. One is write a report of an analysis, and the second is to just record a brief video, just a few minute video of you practicing talking about your analysis and your results, okay? Just so that we know that you're comfortable talking about data. So for the first one, the first part is you're doing an inferential analysis report, and here's more or less how it should be formatted. So what we're being asked to do is you are asked to look at a data set provided to you, which I believe it's the same or similar to the data set that you got for project 1. So if you remember for project 1, you were asked to do descriptive statistics on 3 categoricals and 2 continuous variables, I believe. And for this, for project part 2, what you're asked to do is you're then asked to select some variables and then to pick so that you are able to carry out to show that you can do an analysis, one test from group A and one test from group B. So ideally, you're able to use at least some of the variables that you pick for your first project and use them in this project. And so what you would be doing for each of these are called group A and group B, but you're only doing one analysis each. So for group A, you're either doing a t-test, an ANOVA, or regression, or the non-parametric version of it. And for group B, you're either mainly doing a chi-square or a Pearson correlation. So, and then in your report, what you're asked to do is you give a brief introductory paragraph, telling us a little bit about what you're interested in with the variables that you have chosen, where the data is from, what software you're using to analyze. So that's over here. This is just a draft from another student that you can see here where just a brief, like a few sentences introduction about your proposal, basically, what you're proposing, and you're briefly describing the two studies that you're proposing. Ideally, they would be similar to each other. I mean, but they don't necessarily, have to be, but it would be nice if they were like related. If not, don't worry about it. I guess the theme is that they're all like, it's about college students' health, right? Then you're gonna give us your description for the first analysis, and for each, you're gonna tell us what your variables you have picked with the coding that is in the code book. And then you're gonna give us your null and alternative, your null and research hypotheses. They should be phrased similar to how we have been practicing. And then you would give us descriptive analysis, just as we did for the first project, descriptive analysis for the variables that you're using, followed by your inferential test. So one thing that is going to help you is, well, first, I mean, you're seeing which variables you're interested in. That's correct. So if I remember correctly, I gave you this code book here that we have, so that can help you select the variables. And I think it's more clear to see in the code book to appreciate what variables are categorical and how they're coded and which ones are continuous, okay? So in this case, we pick, for example, how would you describe overall health? And we pick one of these, it doesn't matter, one of these of, I feel that I belong in my university, for example. So we'd like to see if there's an association, right? If there's a difference in students' perception of health by whether they feel like they belong to the university or not. And we're gonna come back to this in a minute. And then over here, we can see other, where's the other one? Yeah, this one. We can also study one that is more like continuous, like on the last 7 days, how many days did you exercise to strengthen your muscles? So here we see exactly that it goes from 0 days, 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4, 5, 6, and 7, right? It's more continuous. Then what I would suggest to do is look back at your workbook. So if you open your workbook in the last few pages, there is a summary in the appendix A and B comparing all the inferential analysis. So here it tells you basically what you should be including in your report besides, of course, besides the descriptive analysis. So if, let's say if you're running a chi-square, then it tells you what variables you should be using, what kind of graphs or tables you should be including, how you write. Here you can even copy and paste or you should use the notation, okay? Find this notation. I think it's in some of the worksheet I've posted also on Canvas, but here you see how the variables are, how the hypotheses are more or less phrased. You need to customize your hypothesis according to your actual hypothesis. So don't just say there's no association between the two variables, but actually say there is no association between students' feeling of belonging to the university and their perception of overall health. Okay, so be specific about your own hypothesis. We have here degrees of freedom, and it also tells you the assumptions that you should be meeting in order to run these tests. So all of this information you should be including, and then if it doesn't pass the assumption, which is the test that you should be carrying out instead, okay? And you see here you have Shapiro-Wilk test as well as scatter plot, and if not, you do the Spearman instead. And over here, you have the other one. So in this case, let's say that we choose to do the ANOVA, okay, for the first one in which we're trying to assess if there's an association, if there's a difference in whether feelings of belonging makes a difference in students' perception of overall health. So in this one, what we see here is that there's 5 groups. If we group the students, let's say this will be our group variable or grouping variable or factor variable or independent variable. It's going to be this one. And we see that there's 5 groups. Excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor. So one thing that it really bugs me, and I'm sorry, but this is the way that the data was coded, was that excellent is 1, very good is 2. As you notice, excellent is the lowest score and poor is the highest score. That's not how I would code. If I'm coding anything, if it's ordinal, I always want to code it in a way that makes sense. You know, if it's poor, I give it like a 1, right? Or a 0 or a 1. And then if it's excellent, then like a 5. But so you just have to keep that in mind when you are interpreting your results. Now down here we have, notice that we have, I feel that I belong at my college and university. So one thing that you'll notice is that this variable is actually categorical, okay? It's not continuous. So to run an ANOVA test, we need our grouping variable, right? We're comparing different groups. We're comparing one variable across more than 2 groups. But here, what we have, the good thing about this is that it goes from 1, which is strongly disagree. This is great. And then as the student agrees more with the statement, it goes up to 6, strongly agree. So what we're going to do with this variable is I'm just going to turn, because it's ordinal, I'm just going to turn this ordinal variable into a scale. So I'm going to pretty much make it a continuous variable so that we can then run the an ANOVA test. And you can do that with other variables if they're ordinal. But you do need to note in your report that you're using an ordinal variable, but for the purposes of the analysis to carry it out, it just makes sense to treat it as continuous. Over here, and this one is just continuous because it's like 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. So there's nothing we need to change about this one. So we'll just go through one analysis to give you an example of how to do this. Sorry, I don't know if you can hear noise, but there's some noise here. So another thing, so I think that was mainly it. Let me see what else. Yeah, so the information is here. If you go further down in your chart, in your workbook, it says Appendix B, and it tells you a summary of how, with the instructions of how to carry out the analysis in SPSS. See? So you can also head back here to, for that information, okay? So notice that for a one-way ANOVA, we need to satisfy the criteria of being the data being normal and being the variance being homogeneous. I think that was the word. And so that means that we have to run the Shapiro-Wilk test and the Levine test. If it doesn't pass the Shapiro-Wilk test, that means we can't do an ANOVA. We need to do the Kruskal-Wallis test, which is the non-parametric version of it. Okay. So that's the first thing. So, and then we'll go back to the report. Okay, so that's the gist of it. And then down here, notice that there's a rubric of what should be included and what counts like a great project, an excellent project. Okay. So make sure that you review this information. So let's go over here. And so the variables we're using are the first two. This one is the overall health, and this one is the feelings of belonging. The one that I told you that is nominal, as you see by these three balls here, the sign. But since it's ordinal, we're gonna convert it into the scale. So notice here it says N3Q2A, and you click here, it goes the values, you're just confirming it is the variable that you want to use, 1 through 6, great. Notice here it says nominal. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna click scale. That's it. I'm turning it, I'm just making it be a scale variable, and you see here that it's become a scale. The next step, what we want to do is, I think that we want to notice that there's a number of missing variables. So all these dots are missing variables. That's how missing values. That's how they're coded in SPSS, and they're not the same as in Excel, right? Or in, but this is how the statistic analysis softwares function, because a 0 is a value, it's not missing variable. So we want to get rid of those missing values. So what we're going to do, if you didn't do that for project 1, some of you did and some of you didn't. But if you didn't do that, you should do it before you start this analysis, and then rerun your descriptive analysis. So you click data, you go all the way down to select cases, and then if condition is satisfied, and then down here, you're gonna go all the way down to missing values. You're gonna click and miss. And then we're gonna enter the variables separated by a comma that we want. And we're not gonna click less than 1, meaning ignore any values that are less than 1 for these two variables. I think there's another way of if you have values that are, in this case, these two variables don't have any values less than 1. So we can do this. But in the other variable that has like a values of 0, you may need to look into what you need to do is look at videos here on YouTube, and they tell you exactly like this one, how to remove missing values. So figure out how to remove values and outliers from your data sets. Okay, there's a lot of helpful information here. So we're just gonna press continue and click here, filter out unselected cases, and we click OK. So notice that now they are out of our 2 variables. Yay! So again, the first thing that you want to do is you want to basically you want to do your descriptive analysis, okay? But I'm not gonna go through it again. This is something that you should be doing on your own. I'm looking for the tabulation. Analyze, descriptive, result frequencies, oral health. Then you can pick charts or whatever you want. These are not, well, we're treating belonging as if it was continuous. So because we're treating it as continuous, you can click the information that you need for those. Overall health is not continuous, so we can ignore that, but let's just click here. Okay. So in case you didn't get your tables, you wanna, of course, get your information from here. There should be, and here's the, for belonging, here's the mean, the median, and mode. I wanted, well, I think this is good enough for this one. If they're both categorical, what you want to do is you want to get a cross tabulation of both of the variables. I think that's frequency. Display frequency tables. Let's see. Okay, that's it. Okay, so you should now, what you're gonna do is, of course, you wanna check your, see that your data is normally distributed. So we go, as we did before, analyze this, and then, I forgot, sorry. Analyze, descriptive, explore, and you bring your factor list, which is overall health, before we do the ANOVA here. Click plots, you click normality plots with test, so you can see whether it's normal or not. And it'll give you some descriptive. Now down here, see, it says where it says test of normality. Now it's telling you whether it is normal or not. When we do it by overall health, it is saying it's less than 0.05, the p-value for the Shapiro-Wilk test. So it's saying it's not normally distributed. So that means that we should not run the Shapiro-Wilk test. Let me see if I do it. Let me take this out. Okay. Yes, and I run it alone and again. So it's less than 0.05. That means that we need to run, we shouldn't run the because it didn't pass the Shapiro-Wilk test. It's telling us that we need to run the Kruskal-Wallis or the Welch ANOVA. So I'm gonna check whether I just want to check the Levine test. That's the second test. If you look back at our slides from that lecture, the instructions are there. So we bring our grouping variable here by overall health, and our dependent is belonging. Let's do, whoa. No, we don't click Tukey because I just want to do the Levine test. So it's not telling you that. Okay, so why don't we run the Kruskal-Wallis test? That's the one because it wasn't normal. Let me look for Kruskal-Wallis. Okay. So we're gonna go to analyze non-parametric test, independent samples, fields, and again, we bring our grouping variable is overall health and belonging in the university, and we're gonna click run. And it tells us that we reject the null hypothesis. So the null hypothesis was that there was no difference, right? There's no difference in feelings of belonging to the university by level of overall perceived health. And what this test is telling us is actually that there is a difference between the groups in how they feel towards the university, okay? And here's we have the information. So you're supposed to, of course, gather the information that you need to write up your results. When you come down here in the post-calc analysis, these are the pairwise comparisons. It's telling you which groups, and I'm not going to give you the answer because this is something that is part of your analysis, of course. You're first going to give us these results over here, the results of your statistic test that you run, the Kruskal-Wallis, and then down here, you're going to tell us, you're going to give us the pairing, exactly all these pairings, and tell us where was the difference in feelings of belonging. Where did it make a difference? And it made a difference where the significance level here in the pairs where the significance level was lower than 0.05, okay? So once you figure this out, you need to, of course, enter this information include this information in your report, this one like in a table and also in text, in table and in text format. What you're then going to do, I mean, if it didn't show, if your results failed to reject the null hypothesis, then you don't have to look at the post hoc analysis. You don't have to look at this further if you're doing an ANOVA. But because we found out that there is a difference between the groups, then you do have to look at these results. And then what you're going to have to do next in your interpretation is you're saying, okay, we found that there is a difference, and now you're going to tell us where the differences are. So here, I'm going to tell you just one example. Let's say it looked like there was a difference between the group that reported poor health and the group that reported good health, because the p-value is 0.02, which is less than 0.05. So remember, poor and good. So let's go up here where we run our descriptive. Here, right here, see our descriptive information. So there was a difference between the ones who say poor and good. And what you're going to see here in your descriptive information is now you're going to make sense of that data. You're going to say there was a difference between the students who say good and poor. And the good student reported an average of 4.5, okay? Of 4.5 in feelings of belonging. Whereas the students that felt poor health had an average feeling of belonging of 3.3. You see this right here? So let's look back at the code book. So an average of 3.3 is around somewhat, if you look at this, is somewhat disagree. So the students, the group of students that reported poor health were more likely, their average was disagree that they feel like they belong in the university. And the students who had reported good health had a 4.5. And if you come here, 4.5 is kind of in between somewhat agree and agree. Okay, so it's right here in the middle. So this is what you want to make sense of when you're writing up your results. Don't just say, okay, the test was statistically significant, end of story. That's not enough. You then need to make sense. Go back to what your data means, go back, explain what the averages were, explain now what your results actually mean. So there was a difference, and this was the difference right here. And then I don't know if there was another difference. Look at the excellent. The average of the students who said excellent was 5.12. That's between agree, a little over agree, and towards strongly agree. So that's over here. Okay, so that's what I think you want to make sense in your report. I don't know if you want to have like a screenshot of these or put it in some sort of a graphic to show what the, like with an arrow, the difference between the 2 or 3 groups, where the difference that were different from each other. Not all of them were different from each other, right? But a lot of these pairings turned out to be different. But like between poor and fair, there was no difference, right? So then again, look back at the descriptive information. What was the average for the poor and the average for the fair? And you can make sense of that and say, we didn't find a difference between those two. And then you can add whatever couple of graphics or charts that are needed to accompany that that analysis. So that is one of the analysis. Not gonna go through the other one. Where's the other paper? Okay, so let's say that's the first one, right? Group A. And then for group B, you have to do a chi-square or a Pearson correlation. If you're doing a chi-square, that means you have 2 categorical variables. If you're doing a Pearson correlation, it means you have 2 continuous variables. And then you just, again, follow what here in the workbook, follow the instructions on assumptions, and then on how you carry out that analysis. I mean, if you run into some trouble, if you feel like it's not giving you, if you find that it's not statistically significant, that's okay. You can report, you can say, we did not find that there was a relationship between these 2 variables, and explain what that means in lame terms. So you're not required to find results that are significant. It's okay to report that they're not significant, okay? So as it says here, what you need to do for categorical variables, you need to include frequency percentage, and for quantitative, you need to include the measures of central tendency and dispersion. And down here, and again, when you're done, don't just say, okay, p-value was this, end of story. You need to give us like your f value, all the value, the statistic test value, all of that, post hoc analysis if necessary, and then describe, interpret your findings, okay? Like I just did, looking back into the codes and the original averages for the groups and what that actually means. Do you have questions? Do you have a question?
I think I got most of it. So, do you want all of that data that we have, do you want every single chart in our report, or do you want us to just explain the report?
I don't want every single chart. If you want, you can put all of your output. Why don't you put all the outputs? Not all the charts. Like you saw, there were a lot of like Q plots and all of those,
Yeah.
but more like the important outputs. You can put all of them in like in the appendix of your paper as you're working on it.
Okay.
But what I want, because I want the report to look more. Oh, hello, are you there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, sorry. I want the report to look more professional. So if you notice here, these two, then, okay, first notice you have your variables. You should put the coding right? Put what the code in parentheses was, and then down here you have your null and your research hypothesis. So in
Right.
this, for example, there is no difference. This was an ANOVA too. There
Okay.
is no difference in number of alcoholic drinks the last time the students socialized by their feelings or belonging to the university culture. And the alternative hypothesis was written as, there is a difference in number of alcoholic drinks the last time the students socialized by their feelings of belonging to the university culture. Then you explain, of course, as before, like how that structure, you might want to put here strongly agree, like you might want to put the values, right? What that means, like make it look like a report that you would give your boss, basically, if they ask you to look at some data. And then using all that. Notice that the student here, she didn't just plop, plop output from SPSS like sloppily. She created some tables. She wants to make it look neat. Some of like this is fine. This looks neat. It's a screenshot right from this histogram, from this bar chart, and this one's fine. But the tables look nicer when they're like more like cleaner like this.
Okay.
So this again, this one is straight from that. That's fine. This one I would change. Like I would maybe make this table nicer, which is the ANOVA results. And then this one, yes, like this one shows the Shapiro wheel. Like this one may be better in the appendix, like at the end of the
At the
document.
bottom.
And then you want, of course, like I mentioned, like results, maybe a table with the results showing the pairings,
Mm-hmm.
the pairings if there was statistically significant difference, like in yours there was difference. If not, and also in writing. And then this one is like a correlation. So notice the student is already doing good. I'm just trying to give her a little bit more feedback, but I think this ought to answer most of your question. The other one that you have is, I mean, you still have to do your own, let me see, Pearson correlation. What's a Pearson correlation? You still need to check, analyze correlation by variate. We're doing, if you want to change these, when you're looking at it, you want to go back to what the variables means. You
Yeah.
you click with your both fingers. I mean, I have a Mac. I don't know if you have a Mac, but you click with both fingers in the touchpad and it says display variable names and you can change it. So let's look down at N3Q3B. This is N3QTB. Oh, I hope it let us do it because it says it also says it's nominal. And the other one is N3Q8. This one's scale. And we already clicked Pearson to tell. Let's just. Yes, it lets us do it.
Okay.
So the Pearson correlation. Okay, so I think that it would be great if you can get rid of, like, if you have any like big outliers, but let me look. So I think that should answer most of the question. I guess my only advice would be, look at the different variables. There's some variables, if you want to do a t-test, So last thing, yeah, if you wanna like this open-ended, these are continuous. These you can consider continuous, like servings of fruits.
Yeah.
This one too, you just have to convert, like I did in the like I did here. When you go over here to variable view, just turn it into scale. And then the ones, this one, look at, just one last comment before I turn off the recording. This one is about food insecurity. There's three options, often true, sometimes true, never true. That means you can turn this group into an ANOVA of three groups who feel or don't feel food insecure. And then the ones here, like the ones that are yes, no, in the last 30 days, did you eat less than you felt because there wasn't enough money or food? This one can be a t-test, an independent t-test, because you can be comparing, for example, intake of fruits and vegetables by whether this comparing two groups, group students that felt food insecure and group students that didn't feel food insecure. So any of the ones that have just like yes, no, those are the two group independent t-tests. I think that's mainly it. So you should be able to use a lot of the variables here. There's quite a lot. These ones too, look, no and yes. I was in a physical fight. And this is two groups. I was verbally, I was this. I don't know if these questions are in the data set. Um, yeah, so all of those that are like yes, no, this one, no, yes, like you can do, you can potentially turn into t-test. I mean, independent t-test. I don't think that there's before or after. I don't think they can do like a pair t-test. Uh, and then regression. For a regression, you're just analyzing continuous variables. So like you could run also a regression on leisure time and days strengthening exercises. So if you have, I hope this clarifies a lot of the questions, and let me know if you have questions. Okay, I'm gonna turn off the, so the question was, if a continuous variable has a zero, like 0 days of strengthening, you might not be able to remove the missing values using this formula because we use less than 1. You see? I think there might be another way using missing, and then the variable inside. It says missing variable returns 1 or true if variable has a system or user missing value. I'm not sure. You have to try it and see if it works. Um, yes, it might not work, but you can look into it. No, I don't want to make it 1 because I'm gonna take that out. Mm. Well, there was these instructions. Where did I see this video? Look, listen.
Move the score here. And then when I hit the button for continue,
Okay. So he had this sign. Let's see if he would do it. Might only be able to do one formula at a time. This, so I guess you might just do one at a time. See, you put the squiggly sign missing, and then the variable in parentheses, and then you press filter out unselected cases, okay. And so it should have taken them out. Okay. I think that was it. Let me see, descriptive. Let me run the other one, which was the strengthening. Well, it looks like it doesn't say any missing here. So now do cross tab here, analyze, descriptive cross tab. Let's see, input overall health here, and then belonging to the university in the rows. No, vice versa. The rows be overall health and the columns be belonging to university. And we're gonna click display cluster bars, okay. I just wanna see what it finds. I wanna see if it gives like a tally of no. But no, for that one, all you needed was the one table above, this one, the descriptive, that tells you the descriptive for by each of the groups. Okay, I think that was it. So all you need is instructions, the workbook, the code book here, any other videos besides this video, and the software to do this. So